Welcome to another edition of Safety Net. Today's special guest is Coach David Smalley, the very successful coach of the University of Rio Grande's women's basketball program. We'll be talking about athletes and safety, and stay tuned. Welcome to the University of Rio Grande. My name is Scott Borden. I'm the campus police chief. Usually we have with us Barry Call, the post commander of the Galapagos Post of the Ohio State Highway Patrol. He's a little bit under the weather today, so hopefully we'll have him back next time. Our guest, Coach David Smalley. Going to ask him to tell us a little bit about himself here in a minute, but so that in case he doesn't brag on himself, the thing I would like to get out first is one of the topic we're going to talk about is college athletes and their safety and how things have changed over the years. But Coach Smalley runs a very successful program, women's basketball, and currently has 551 wins, which is currently the third winningest coach in active coaching in NAIA Division II basketball, which is just an incredible amount of wins and an amazing feat. He's a Rio Athlete Hall of Famer and Peebles High School Hall of Famer. So just in case you left that out, I want to make sure we got that in. But if you could, tell us a little about yourself, how you got through your life and how you got to this point.
Chief, are you sure that's right? I'm the third winningest coach. Is that what you're saying?
Third winningest active coach.
Active. Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that, to be honest with you. I did not know that.
No, that's great.
Okay.
But I just want to make sure I got it.
Maybe I'll get a bonus in my check next payday?
I would think so.
You think?
I would think so.
I'm originally from, as the Chief said, Peebles High School, which is located in Adams County. I'm an old farm boy, and I do not make any bones about that. I think some of the things that I've learned to do, and as far as, I guess, understanding working with people came from my farming community. And I went to Rio Grande College, 1978. My daughter said that, Dad, did dinosaurs, were they still roaming in 1978? Got a degree in teaching here at Rio Grande College at that particular time. Then I spent about 6 years teaching in Warren local school system in Washington County, teaching elementary physical education and coaching. And then I soon realized that I wanted to coach at a higher level. To be honest with you, I got written up because I made the girls do weights, work in the weight room in the 84. Then I got written up a written reprimand the second time because we had one of those snow days, snow weeks. I think we were out like 10 days. The weather broke enough that I borrowed a Jeep and went and got a bunch of the players, and we practiced on Sunday. And I guess that was a no-no. You don't practice on Sunday. So I talked with my wife, who was also my assistant coach, and she was teaching English at the time, and she's also a Rio alum. And I said, I want to do something different. So after 6 years at Warren Local, I became a graduate assistant at Bowling Green State University under Fran Vall. Just a tremendous experience coaching with Fran. That particular year, we won 27 ball games, beat University of Cincinnati in the first round of the NCAA tournament, and then lost to University of Maryland at their place. And Maryland went on to be a Final Four team that year. So just a tremendous experience. And then after that, spent 3 years as an assistant coach at Morehead State University, and then the Rio Grande job came open. John Lawhorn, who's a coach that also has been recently put in the Rio Athletic Hall of Fame, coached here for years. He called me up and asked me to come in for an interview, and I've been here since 1992. It's just been a tremendous place to raise a daughter that Margaret and I have in Evans, and I wake up and it's 27 years later, and I've just had some fun in the process, and I think we do have a pretty good basketball program. This year in January we were 13-4, ranked 18th in the country, and then the wheels kind of fell off. We had a ton of injuries, and they were all impact injuries with ACLs. China Chambers, our point guard from Afrocentric, who certainly is an all-conference player. She blew her knee. Jasmine Smith, post player that just scored her 1,000th, blew her knee. And then Sydney Holden, one of the best players, overall athletes that we've had in this program for years, blew her knee. And then we end up 16 and 15. But that's part of life. That's part of, you pick yourself up and, reload and reevaluate. And we're excited to get things started again.
Well, it's a class program. I've been involved in sports my whole life. I'm a big Notre Dame fan. I challenge you. Notre Dame had 5 ACLs last year in the national championship, and I challenge you to do the same thing this year. But,
well, I like that.
But the 8 years I've been here, you've just been great to work with the police department, safety-wise, which is what we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But your girls are all super kids. Mm-hmm. Yesterday came out 10 of them, I believe. It was all academic. Mm-hmm. There's probably some schools would like to have 1, and you had 10. So so you ran a class program, and last year when you guys won the tournament, that's the excitement level of that. I've been going to sports for a long time, and since I've been at Rio, that was the coolest thing I had seen, and cool. I know you had to be proud of it.
Yes. Yeah, that was a 30-win season. This was my 27th year, and that was the first 30-win season that I have experienced, and that was unique in itself. And we have a great bunch of young ladies. Their energy, their effort, they're in the classroom, on the court, in the community. We do so many things in the community. Real quickly, we had that Night to Shine just recently in at Elizabeth Chapel, and that's for special needs young adults, and 5 of my girls and myself went in, and it was a life-changing evening. It really was. It was just my girls, Megan Didway, Jimmy Howe, Chelsea Sloan, Avery Harper, and Whitney Gilkinson. They just did a tremendous job, and they gave of themselves that entire night for what we called the buddies. Our dates were we were buddies, so it was just a tremendous experience, and I'm just blessed that we have great young people in our program year in, year out. I appreciate your comments.
They've always been very respectful and really good kids, and part of that is we want to keep them safe. Other than their parents, I can't imagine that anybody besides you and me want to keep them any safer than it's humanly possible. So I think you've got just a very unique outlook on how things would be, because I think, first of all, you were a student here from 1978 to 1982, so you saw it from that level. And then, as an instructor and a member of the faculty and as a coach, you've got just a lot of perspectives. But just starting out, when you were a college student in 1978 through 82, what was your perspective, or did you even think about some crazy guy showing up, or what was the thought process back then, if there was even any?
Well, let me set the stage, because in 1978, I just came from the hay fields and the tobacco fields, and I can remember my papaw. We're out in the hay fields, and he would crank that baler down especially on clover hay. Those bales would be 120 pounds, I guarantee it, because Papa wanted as much hay in each bale as possible. So my brother and I were out there working, and I know I had heat exhaustion. I know that's what it was, up in the top of the barn. And I remember Papa yelling up at the house, "Hey Mary, bring those boys some salt tablets. This boy, he's overheating. We got to get some salt in him." So here comes Mama with a handful of salt tablets, and we're popping them like candy. And I guess the theory at that particular point was, if you take salt in, you're going to get thirsty, you're going to drink, and that's going to help you out. It's a wonder Papa didn't kill us. So my point is, back in that time, no. When I stepped on this campus, did I think about things that I think about now as a 58-year-old coach? Certainly not. Back in those days, if you had a pulse, and if you had blood pressure and a pulse, you're going to pass a physical. That has changed tremendously, and we'll talk more about that. Shoes, Chuck Taylor, canvas Chuck Taylors. Does that ring a bell?
I went to Chuck Taylor's basketball camp in, I don't even want to say what year, 1976 maybe?
No arch support. Calluses would build up on the bottoms of your, you'd have calluses on top of calluses. Concussion protocol. We didn't know what a concussion was. We obviously hit our heads together, and I remember my brother fell out of the barn hanging tobacco, and I know he had concussions, but Papaw didn't say salt tablets, but he said, boys, get back up in there. We got to get this tobacco hung. So knee trauma, and obviously we're experiencing that, and that has changed so much. Back in the day, I can remember some of my high school coaches, and I won't throw anybody under the bus, but it was a sign of weakness if you had to get water.
Oh, yeah.
A water break? Are you kidding me? Come on, grow up. Be a man. So many things have changed. Traveling back in those days is completely different as it is now. So from the 70s up to now, there's a plethora of things that have changed that you kind of have to be on top of your game as a law enforcement official like yourself, or as a coach, or even administrators and athletic directors. There's so many things that have to change, and we're going to talk about quite a few of those things.
When you were in school, did you live in the dorms, or were you a commuter?
I did. I think I spent all 4 of my years in Holzer basement, and spent I was a resident the entire time. And dorm situations have changed as far as safety. Back in those days, the movie Animal House, it was Animal House, and things have changed tremendously. Even today, we didn't have co-ed floors. I guarantee you, in 1978, if I'd have called my dad and said, "Hey, Dad, I'm living in a dorm that has women living in it," he would have said, and I can quote, "Son, pack your bags. I'll be there in an hour and 15 minutes. You're coming home." So that has changed. The dynamics of all of that has changed. So some things have stayed the same, but a lot of things have changed, and it's kind of interesting. I think I can learn from what I've gone through to now what I'm doing. I just had a recruit today before this event here, and the dorm is a huge part of, if we're going to be able to land a young lady to come to this institution, the dorm is a big part of selling that to the player, and more importantly to the mom.
When you were in the dorms, and you were here in 78 through 82, and it may be tough to remember back then, but did you ever feel unsafe, or did anybody ever talk about a Virginia Tech type event, or was it even in the thought process?
Not at all. And the good things that you guys are doing today with the fire drills and the safety, and certainly with the gun situation that's going on, we didn't have that. We didn't even lock cars. I mean, that was just a different mentality. But obviously, it's a different world that we live in, and what we have now with regulations, the drills that the sirens and the active shooter drills and all the things, those things are so important, because that's life. Those are things that are going on, and I know that people are like, "Oh, why do we have to do this?" That can happen here. We're not isolated anymore. That things like the negative things happen in big cities. No, they happen here in Gallia County, and we want to certainly have people have a plan, have a game plan if something like that were to happen. And you guys do a tremendous job. The gentleman that you encouraged me to go in talk about serial killers. You remember that? Who was that we went to in Gallipolis? That has had an impression on me to the point that it opened my eyes. About things could happen, and I actually have taken some steps, I think, due to that and the nature of what's going on, to take gun classes and concealed carry just for protection of my family and things of that nature. So no, back in the 70s, that really wasn't an issue. Today, I think our athletes and our student population is under the best care here at the university, because we are active in that with the campus police department, and I think Dina Warren and our director does a great job of those things.
Probably didn't have, because one of the problems you got to deal with coaches have to deal with now is the drug problem. I mean, everybody that's been a guest on here has sort of related to the opioid because that's a big deal. You know, when you were in school, there was probably some alcohol, maybe some marijuana. Probably wasn't even as prevalent back then, but you know, now, I mean, even as a coach, you have to shield your girls from that too.
Well, we do, and you know, back in the 70s, you're right, alcohol was big. You know, grass or marijuana obviously was. We didn't have the distractions and the options that are out there now. And being married to my wife, Margaret Evans, who's a common pleas judge, she comes in and talks with my players, and she's offered to talk with other groups about certain things dealing with wrong place, wrong time, being in, especially like with cars. Maybe you're just hitching a ride and somebody's taking you to Walmart, and then all of a sudden they get pulled over, and then you know there's something else happens, and then there's things in the car. You're involved with that, and we try to encourage and make our players understand. You know, be careful who you choose and who you're with, because sometimes you're guilt by association. But it is unbelievable what's out there now. You know, obviously you see it, we see it on campus. It's here in this county. Again, it's not just in the big cities. It's right here.
No, we've been really lucky. I mean, it's around us. You know, when you start talking about the heroin, especially, and you know, all of our guys have the Narcan, and they've had to use it, you know, around the surrounding area. Luckily, it's not been our students, and you know, I worry about that constantly. And like you said, some of your girls, if you get in the wrong place, wrong time, those things happen. But you touched on it a little bit, but if you could maybe, I think of big interest is you got to not only sell the student athlete to come here, you got to sell the parents. So how do you approach, you know, your daughter's going to come here for 4 years, she's going to play basketball for me, but she's going to keep me safe? Because when I talk to all the orientations, and you've probably heard me a couple of times, is the number one concern when they do surveys now is, you know, everybody worries about the food, the dorms, and stuff like that, but parents' number one concern is my child going to be safe? Sure. Doesn't matter what the food is, the grades, and all that, they're not safe. So that's a big aspect that you have to sell. So how do you sell a parent that I'm going to keep her safe, and these are the things my program's doing, and this is the things that the campus are doing? Right.
Well, the first thing that we look at, and talking about student athletes and safety, you know, when I'm recruiting them, we're looking at previous injury, and I do enough research, and we don't always hit a home run, but you know, you got to look and find out what's the history, injury history of this particular athlete. If they're constantly, you know, having the injuries and surgeries, you know, sometimes we'll back off of that. So it's the previous history of the injury, it's the body build, it's a social makeup. You know, I've learned, you know, if in this day and age with media and Facebook, we actually do a little social media checking. And if they're constantly partying and doing things, then that may affect whether or not we go after them aggressively. And then do they meet our basketball philosophy? So those are things that we first look at, and then we're going to bring them in for a visit. We got to get them on campus. We have to, and I am pretty adamant about mom and dad coming with them on the visit. Unfortunately, we have some situations where players, they don't have an active parent involved in their life, and that's unfortunate, but that happens. But when the parents come on campus, we have to sell not only the young lady, the student athlete, to the academics, to the social environment, to the school itself, and then basketball. But we got to deal with, sell the parents on, as you're indicating, the safety. One of the things we do, we have a very active visit. We will 10 a.m. to about 3:30 or 4, and we go around and we take recruits and we meet people. As you know, you're on my calendar for Friday. We have a young lady coming in, and we like to go and make sure that they meet and talk with campus police, because that is a huge. I've been to Morehead State, Bowling Green, on those campuses. You guys, and not just tooting your horn, but you're visible. And I think I understand the philosophy. You know, you got the hat, you got the uniform, because that's a deterrent for that idiot out there that wants to come in and do something nasty. you're always available, and we like to take them and come over and just spend 10, 15 minutes with you and let the parents get to know who you are, and those types of things. And what I really like, because I coach women's basketball, and Davis Hall is a freshman women's dorm, so we're in that lobby, and we've shown them the room, and super single and double occupancy and the free laundry. Then we'll sit in that lobby, and I'll say, look out that window. Tell me what you see. And so mom and dad will go and look out that window, and they'll say, well, I see a brick house. And then they like, oh, that's a campus police station. I said, I love that. I said, it's right there. We have 24-hour campus police, and your guys and gals, I think, do a tremendous job. They're visible, as I'd indicated. They're always in uniform, right across from Davis Hall. That's a selling point. The professionalism and appearance of your officers, I've never had an uncomfortable situation. They always seem to be out there in the golf carts, and I've got a great story on the golf cart. So that's a lasting impression on the parent. So, and we talk about, and then I've had some parents say, well, you must have a lot of crime and issues here if you got all this campus police. And I said, no. Most crimes are just an opportunity of a situation. Theft is usually just an opportunity. Somebody sees a pocketbook on an unlocked car, they're going to take it. I said, no, we have very little crime, but that's probably why we have very little crime, because you're here, you're visible, and you're active. Mark, the gentleman that just left us for, what's Mark's last name? Kenny. A great,
it's just
great guy.
Hated to lose.
Hated to lose him, and a great singer, country singer. I've been into 2 or 3 of his little concerts. So one day we had just a couple months ago, had a recruit in, grandpa and the mother and the kid. So I'm gravitating with grandpa, because grandpas and we get along real well. We're walking, and he gets slower and more tired, and he's telling me he's had double knee replacement, and he had an open heart about 1.5 years ago. And I'm like, and all of a sudden he said, Coach, he said, I can't go any further. About that time, Coach Markham and the mother and the daughter were already almost to the library. So I just called your office. Mark answered, and I explained my situation. He said, well, Coach, you want our golf cart? I said, oh, that would be awesome. He said, I'll bring it up. He brought it up, and I had the golf cart the rest of the time. That gentleman, we didn't get the girl, but he has called me on 2 different occasions because he wanted his granddaughter to come here, but he always talks about that nice officer, and he talks about, so that's a huge draw, and I hope that never ends. And then, of course, the relationship that you all have, and I love telling everybody, our campus police chief, Chief Borden, is a retired state highway patrolman, and they're like, a state highway patrolman, obviously you guys don't have a good relationship with the public or whatever, because and I said, you will not find a better man, a more understanding department, and they're going to hold students accountable when they're wrong, but they also try to eliminate negative and bad situations by having a great relationship. So that's on our recruiting process. That's what we do. We take them around, and we show them, obviously, the academic end. If they want to go into nursing, they're going to sit and talk with nursing. And we do that from 10 to about 3 o'clock every time we have a good visit, and we'll look forward to seeing you on Friday with our next one.
Well, the preventative stuff, and I'm glad you brought it, the community policing is a big deal. I mean, because when people see, and the thing that I talk about is, when you see our officers, one of the things I brought over from the State Patrol, the 2 things I brought over is troopers treat people with dignity and respect. And the thing I demand from our officers is they will treat the students and your players and your young women with dignity and respect. And troopers look professional. I mean, like you mentioned, when you see our guys, they don't have donut stuff over the front of their shirt, and they don't have mud on their boots, and they wear Stetsons like troopers. And it's to scare the bad guy off, because there was a shooting a couple years ago in the country where 9 innocent people were brutally shot by a bad guy. And what most people don't realize is he went to a community college 2 days prior to that with the intent of shooting and killing college kids. The reason he didn't was he went to that college and they had uniformed, competent-looking police officers, and being the cowards that they are, he left. So that's my goal, is that we have people out. You you know, we scare those people off, and your girls and their parents don't have to worry about that.
Sure.
Okay, kids have changed. What's the biggest change you've seen from kids when you first started coaching? And maybe they haven't, because kids always feel nothing bad's going to happen to me. But have you seen a change in attitude between when you first started coaching to the girls you got now?
Well, without a doubt, and I went to the Final Four last year and enjoyed watching Notre Dame just take care of business with UConn. But I went to probably about 10 different clinics to learn X's and O's and out of bounds plays and listen to other successful coaches. The best clinic that I went to was this psychologist, and the title of her speaking engagement was "Meet Me Halfway," and I'm like, I didn't even have any concept what that was all about. So I went ahead and went in, and it was talking about the generation, and it hit the nail on the head for me because I'm old school, and trying to understand where this generation is coming from. What I learned from that theory was, you know, we have to, as a coach, have to meet them halfway, and I asked my players to meet me halfway in a lot of different areas. It's just a different generation, how they think. You know, they need to have involvement. Sometimes it needs to be their ideas and concepts, and we've learned to work with that. In the same way with safety and just being aware of your environment. Sometimes young people, they don't see possibly the negative things that could happen. For example, we travel, and the only way I'm going to let one of my players not come back with us on the bus would be if parent or guardian gives me verbal face-to-face. I mean, I've had players say, well, you know, my sister's boyfriend is going to drive me back. No, we can't do that. We got to be aware of that. So it's a learning curve, and I decided if I stop learning, it's time to get out of this. But for example, back to talking and bringing players in for visits, we have an assumption of risk medical consent form that Tara Gerlach is our trainer, and she does a tremendous job with all the things that she has to do with athletes and safety in reference to physicals and things of that nature. But at first I was like, I'm against this, but it's the perfect thing. It's what has to happen. You know, have you ever been told you have a heart condition? Have you ever had head injuries, concussions? Are you asthmatic, exercise-induced asthma? And then it's a consent form that basically is going to, you know, hold us not negligent, but if we do something stupid, there's going to be litigation. But this helps out, and just having those types of things we got to be concerned about.
Well, Coach, I appreciate your time. I know you've been traveling 2,500 miles in the last week. I appreciate your time. We could go for another half hour, and maybe hopefully soon we can get you back on. We didn't get to everything we wanted to, but I think you run a class, you're a class man, and you run a class program, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you in April.